Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios in the Haven High of Kent. We hope that you are all adapting to the new normal, whatever that happens to be, where you're living, and that you're safe and well and happy. Reading Srila Prabhupada's books. It's going around, it's getting around. I've heard from a couple of godbrothers and also from the executive director of the educational ministry of the GBC, strategic planning team, that he's using the readings, the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books as a model, as an example for how to get into reading Srila Prabhupada's books. They're having 1 week of Shravanam, the Shravanam special week, and I'm trying to promote why just a week kind of thing. But yes, it's inevitable that eventually this hearing and chanting will get around, and maybe even the pandemic is helping it in a sense, forcing devotees to find different ways to have their spiritual programs other than going into the temple. So we're safe, and happily going forward in our spiritual lives by becoming more attached to hearing about Krishna and Sri Caitanya Mahäprabhu and all of their eternal associates, their pastimes. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur held Sri Caitanya-caritämrta in especially high esteem, as did Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his father, and our dear Srila Prabhupada. So Bhaktisiddhanta had this special poetic glorification to say. In due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, for if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after it is subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all scripture, of all Shastra. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come back from South India, and he's greeted and been greeted by all of his loving devotees in Jagannath Puri, where he is now settling down. Some of his extremely important and confidential devotees have come together around him in Jagannath Puri, Sri Damodar Goswami, Govinda, his personal servant, and others, along with the Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and all of the Jagannath Puri Walas, Jagannath Puri Basis. And just before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived back in Puri, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had been requested by Maharaj Prataparudra to arrange a meeting. So that's where we stand. We're just beginning chapter 11 of the Madhya-lila, the Beda-kirtana pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur summarizes the 11th chapter in his Amrita Pravaha Bhasha. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya tried his best to arrange a meeting between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and King Prataparudra, the Lord flatly denied his request. At this time, Sri Ramananda Roy returned from his governmental post, and he praised King Prataparudra highly in Lord Chaitanya's presence. Because of this, the Lord became a little soft. The king also made promises to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who hinted how the king might meet the Lord. During Anavasara, while Lord Jagannath was resting for 15 days, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being unable to see Lord Jagannath, went to Alalanath. Later, when the devotees from Bengal came to see him, he returned to Jagannath Puri. While Advaita Acharya and the other devotees were coming to Jagannath Puri, Sarup Damodar and Govinda, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's two personal assistants, went to receive all the devotees with garlands. From the roof of his palace, King Prataparudra could see all the devotees arriving. Gopinath Acharya stood on the roof with the king, and following Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's instructions, identified each and every devotee. The king discussed the devotees with Gopinath Acharya, and he mentioned that the devotees were accepting prasadam without observing the regulative principles governing pilgrimages. They accepted prasadam without having shaved, and they neglected to fast in a holy place. After Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had explained to the king why the devotees had apparently violated the scriptural injunctions for visiting a place of pilgrimage, the king arranged residential quarters for all the devotees and saw to their prasadam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talked very happily with Vasudev Datta and other devotees. Haridas Thakur also came, and due to his humble and submissive attitude, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him a nice solitary place near the temple. After this, the Lord began performing Sankirtan, dividing all the devotees into 4 groups. After Sankirtan, all the devotees left for the residential quarters. Text 1. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu merged the entire world into the ocean of ecstatic love by performing his beautiful dances within the temple of Jagannath. He danced exquisitely and jumped high. Text 2, sorry. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Sri Advaita Prabhu. And all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The next day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya requested Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give him permission to submit a statement without fear. Text 4. The Lord gave the Bhattacharya assurance that he could speak without fear, but added that if his statement were suitable, he would accept it, and if it were not, he would reject it. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, "There is a king named Prataparudra Roy. He is very anxious to meet you, and he wants your permission. Text 6. As soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this proposal, he immediately covered his ears with his hands and said, "My dear Sarvabhauma, why are you requesting such an undesirable thing from me?" Text 7. Since I am in the renounced order, it is as dangerous for me to meet a king as to meet a woman. To meet either would be just like drinking poison. Text 8. Nishkinchanasya bhagavad bhajanon mukhasya padam padam jigamashor babasagarasya sandarshanam vijahinam vishayinam atajoshitam cha ha hanta hanta vishabhakshanato pisadu. Greatly lamenting, the Lord then informed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, "Alas, for a person who is seriously desiring to cross the material ocean and engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motives, seeing a materialist engaged in sense gratification or seeing a woman who is similarly interested is more abominable than drinking poison willingly." Purport. This is a quotation from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, Nataka 8:23. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enunciates the principles for a sannyasi renouncing the material world for spiritual advancement. Spiritual advancement is not meant for magic shows and jugglery, but for crossing the material world and being transferred to the spiritual world. Padam padam jigamasho means desiring to go to the other side of the material world. There is a river called Vaitarani, and on the other side of this river is the material world, and on the other side is the spiritual world. Since the Vaitarani river is compared to a great ocean, it is named Bhava Sagara, the ocean of repeated birth and death. Spiritual life aims at stopping this repetition of birth and death and entering into the spiritual world, where one can live eternally cognizant and blissful. Unfortunately, the general populace does not know anything about spiritual life or the spiritual world. The spiritual world is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, in the Bhagavad Gita 8:20. Parastasmat tu bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat sanatanaha yak sasarveshu bhuteshu nashatsu navinashyati. Yet there is another unmanifested nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. Thus there is a spiritual nature beyond this material world, and that spiritual nature exists eternally. Spiritual advancement means stopping material activities and entering into spiritual activities. This is the process of Bhakti Yoga. In the material world, the via media for sense gratification is mainly a woman. One who is seriously interested in spiritual life should strictly avoid women. A sannyasi should never see a man or a woman for material benefit. In addition, talks with materialistic men and women are also dangerous, and they are compared to drinking poison. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very strict on this point. He therefore refused to see King Prataparudra, who was naturally always engaged in political and economic affairs. The Lord even refused to see the king despite the request of a personality like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was the Lord's intimate friend and devotee. Text 9. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, "My dear Lord, what you have said is correct, but this king is not an ordinary king. He is a great devotee and servant of Lord Jagannath." Text 10. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Although it is correct that the king is a great devotee, he is still to be considered a venomous snake. Similarly, even though a woman be made of wood, one becomes agitated simply by touching her form." Purport. Sri Chanakya Pandit has stated in his moral instructions, "Tyajya durjana sangsargam bhajasadu samagamam." This means that one has to abandon the association of materialistic people and associate with spiritually advanced people. However qualified a materialist may be, he is no better than a venomous serpent. Everyone knows that a snake is dangerous and poisonous, and when its hood is decorated with jewels, it is no less poisonous or dangerous. However qualified a materialist may be, he is no better than a snake decorated with jewels. One should therefore be careful in dealing with such materialists, just as one would be careful in dealing with a bejeweled serpent. Even though a woman may be made of wood or stone, she becomes attractive when decorated. One becomes sexually agitated even by touching the form. Therefore, one should not trust his mind, which is so fickle that it can give way to enemies at any moment. The mind is always accompanied by 6 enemies, namely Kama, Krodha, Madha, Moha, Matsarya, and Bhaya. That is lust, anger, intoxication, illusion, envy, and fear. Although the mind may be merged in spiritual consciousness, one should always be very careful in dealing with it, just as one is careful in dealing with a snake. One should never think that his mind is trained and that he can do whatever he likes. One interested in spiritual life should always engage his mind in the service of the Lord, so that the enemies of the mind, who always accompany the mind, will be subdued. If the mind is not engaged in Krishna consciousness at every moment, there is a chance that it will give way to its enemies. In this way, we become victims of the mind. Chanting the Hare Krishna mantra engages the mind at the lotus feet of Krishna constantly. Thus the mind's enemies do not have a chance to strike. Following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's example, in these verses, we should be very careful in dealing with the mind, which should not be indulged in any circumstance. Which should not be indulged in any circumstance. Once we indulge the mind, it can create havoc in this life, even though we may be spiritually advanced. The mind is specifically agitated through the association of materialistic men and women. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through his personal behavior, warns everyone to avoid meeting a materialistic person or a woman. Text 11. Akarad apibedavyam strinam vijayinam api yata her manasak chobas tata tasya-caritämrta. Just as one is immediately frightened upon seeing a live serpent or even the form of a serpent, one endeavoring for self-realization should similarly fear a materialistic person and a woman. Indeed, he should not even glance at their bodily features. Purport. This is a quotation from Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya, excuse me. This is a quotation from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta Nataka 8:24. Text 12. Bhattacharya, if you continue to speak like this, you will never see me here again. Therefore, you should never let such a request come from your mouth. Text 13. Being afraid, Sarvabhauma returned home and began to meditate on the matter. At this time, Maharaj Prataparudra arrived at Jagannath Puri, Purushottam, and, accompanied by his secretaries, ministers, and military officers, went to visit the temple of Lord Jagannath. Purport. It appears that Maharaj Prataparudra used to live at Kataka, his capital. Later, he shifted his capital to Khurda, just a few miles from Jagannath Puri. Presently, there is a railway station there called Khurda Road. Text 15. When King Prataparudra returned to Jagannath Puri, Ramananda Roy came with him. Ramananda Roy immediately went to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great pleasure. Purport. All Indian kings are given titles. Sometimes they are known as Chhatrapati, sometimes as Nadapati, sometimes as Ashrapati, and so on. The king of Orissa is addressed as Gajapati. Text 16. Upon meeting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramananda Roy offered his obeisances. The Lord embraced him, and both of them began to cry in a great ecstasy of love. Text 17. Seeing Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intimate dealings with Sri Ramananda Roy, all the devotees there were astonished. Text 18. Ramananda Roy said, I duly informed King Prataparudra of your order for me to retire from service. By your grace, the king was pleased to relieve me of these material activities. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested Ramananda Roy to retire from his governorship, and according to the Lord's desire, Ramananda Roy petitioned the king. The king was very pleased to give him relief, and thus Ramananda Roy retired from service and received a pension from the government. Text 19. I said, Your Majesty, I am now not willing to engage in political activities. I desire only to stay at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kindly give me permission. Text 20. When I submitted this proposal, the king immediately became very pleased upon hearing your name. Indeed, he instantly rose from his throne and embraced me. Text 21. My dear Lord, as soon as the king heard your holy name, he was immediately overwhelmed with great ecstatic love. Catching my hand, he displayed all the symptoms of love. Text 22. As soon as he heard my petition, he immediately granted me a pension without reductions. Thus the king granted me a full salary as a pension and requested me to engage without anxiety in the service of your lotus feet. Text 23. Then Maharaj Prataparudra very humbly said, I am most fallen and abominable, and I am unfit to receive an interview with the Lord. One's life is successful if one engages in his service. Text 24. The king then said, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda. He is very merciful, and I hope that in a future birth, he will allow me an interview. Text 25. O my Lord, I don't think that there is even a fraction of Maharaj Prataparudra's loving ecstasy in me. Text 26. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, My dear Ramananda Roy, you are the foremost of all the devotees of Krishna. Therefore, whoever loves you is certainly a very fortunate person. 27. Because the king has shown so much love for you, Lord Krishna will certainly accept him. Purport. King Prataparudra requested an interview with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the Bhattacharya, who duly submitted the request. The Lord, however, immediately refused this interview. Now, when Ramananda Roy informed the Lord how eager the king was to see him, the Lord was immediately pleased. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested Ramananda Roy to retire from his government post and come to Sri Purushottam Kshetra, Jagannath Puri, to live with him. When this proposal was submitted to King Prataparudra, he immediately accepted it and also encouraged Ramananda Roy by allowing him a full pension. This was very much appreciated by the Lord, and this confirms the fact that the Lord is more pleased when one serves the servant of the Lord. In ordinary parlance it is said, if you love me, love my dog. To approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to go through his confidential servant. This is the method. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu clearly says, because the king loves you, Ramananda Roy, he is very fortunate. Krishna will certainly accept him due to his love for you. Text 28. Ye me bhakta janak partha, name bhaktas chache janaha, mad bhaktanam chaye bhaktas, te me bhakta tama mataha. Lord Krishna told Arjuna, those who are my direct devotees are actually not my devotees, but those who are devotees of my servant are factually my devotee. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quotes this verse from the Adi Purana. The verse is also included in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita 2.6. Text 29 and 30. My devotees take great care and respect in rendering me service. They offer obeisances to me with all their bodily limbs. They worship other devotees and find all living entities related to me. For me, they engage the entire energy of their bodies. They engage the power of speech in glorification of my qualities and form. They also dedicate their minds unto me and try to give all kinds of material desires and try to give up all kinds of material desires. Thus, my devotees are characterized. Purport. These two verses are quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam 11, 19, 21 and 22. They were spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, who was answering Uddhava's inquiry about devotional service. Text 31. Aradhananam sarvesham vishnor aradhanam param tasmat parataram devi tadiyanam samacharam. Lord Shiva told the goddess Durga, my dear Devi, although the Vedas recommend worship of demigods, the worship of Lord Vishnu is topmost. However, above the worship of Lord Vishnu is the rendering of service to the Vaishnavas, who are related to Lord Vishnu. Purport. The Vedas are divided into three divisions: Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda. These are activities dealing with fruitive work, empiric philosophical speculation, and worship. There are recommendations in the Vedas for the worship of various demigods, such as Lord Vishnu. In this quotation from the Padma Purana, there are recommendations in the Vedas for the worship of various demigods as well as Lord Vishnu. In this quotation from the Padma Purana, Lord Shiva answers a question posed to him by goddess Durga. This verse is also included in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita 2.4 by Srila Rupa Goswami. The words Vishnur Aradhanam refer to the worship of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. Thus, the supreme form of worship is the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. It is further concluded that the worshipper of Lord Vishnu renders better service by worshipping the devotee of Lord Krishna. There are different types of devotees: those in Shantaras, Dasyaras, Sakyaras, Vatsalyaras, and Madhurya Ras. Although all the rasas are on the transcendental platform, Madhurya Rasa is the supreme transcendental mellow. Consequently, it is concluded that the worship of devotees engaged in the Lord's service in Madhurya Rasa is the supreme spiritual activity. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers mainly worship Lord Krishna in Madhurya Rasa. Other Vaishnava acharyas recommend worship up to Vatsalya Rasa. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami, in his Vidagdha Madhava 1.2, describes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cult as supreme. Anarpita chidim chidat karuna yavatirna kalo. Samar payitum unnat jojala rasam sabhakti shriyam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this age of Kali to exhibit the super excellence of Madhurya Rasa, a gift never previously bestowed by any acharya or incarnation. Consequently, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is accepted as the most magnanimous incarnation. It is he only who distributed love of Krishna while exhibiting the super excellence of loving Krishna in the conjugal rasa. Text 32. Durapa yalpa tapasa seva vaikunta vartmasu yatro bhakiyate nityam yatro pagiyate nityam deva devo janardanaha. Those whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees progressing on the path back to the kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and the controller of all living entities. Purport. This is a verse, excuse me. This verse is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 3.7.20. It was spoken by Vidura in his conversation with Maitreya Rishi, a great devotee of the Lord. Text 33. Paramananda Puri Brahmananda Bharati Gosai, Sarup Damodar Gosai, Lord Nityananda, Jagadananda, Mukunda, and others were present before the Lord at that time. Text 34. Sri Ramananda Roy therefore offered his obeisances to all the Lord's devotees, in particular to the four spiritual masters. Thus Ramananda Roy suitably met all the devotees. Purport. The four spiritual masters referred to in this verse are Paramananda Puri, Brahmananda Bharati, Sarup Damodar, and Lord Nityananda. Text 35. Sri Caitanya Mahäprabhu next asked Ramananda Roy, "Have you already visited the temple of the lotus-eyed Lord Jagannath?" Ramananda Roy replied, I shall now go to visit the temple." 36. Sri Caitanya Mahäprabhu replied, "What have you done, my dear Roy? Why did you not first see Lord Jagannath and then come here? Why have you come here first?" Text 37. Ramananda Roy said, "The legs are like the chariot, and the heart is like the charioteer. Wherever the heart takes the living entity is obliged to go." Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, 1861, Lord Krishna explains, Ishwarat sarvabhutanam riddhisharjuna tishtati brahmayam sarvabhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of material energy. Thus the living entity wanders within this universe, riding upon a chariot, the body, bestowed by material nature. A similar explanation is given in the Katha Upanishad 1.3, 3 and 4. Atmanam ratinam vidi shariram ratam eva tu. Buddhim tusartim vidi manak pragraham evacha. Indriyani hayan ahur vishayangs teshu gocharan. Atmendriya mano yuktam bhoktetyahur manishinaha. Here it is said that the living entity is the passenger riding in the chariot of the body, which is offered by material nature. The intelligence is the charioteer, the mind constitutes the reins controlling the horses, and the senses are the horses. Thus the living entity is the false enjoyer of the material world. One who is advanced in Krishna consciousness can control the mind and intelligence, and in this way rein in the horses, the senses, even though they are very powerful. One who can control the senses by his mind and intelligence can very easily approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or Vishnu, who is the ultimate goal of life. Tad Vishno Panamam Padam Sada Pashyanti Suryaha. Those who are actually advanced approach Lord Vishnu, their ultimate goal. Such people are never captivated by Lord Vishnu's external energy, the material world. Text 38. Sri Ramananda Roy continued, "What shall I do? My mind has brought me here. I could not consider going first to Lord Jagannath's temple." Text 39. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu advised, "Immediately go to Lord Jagannath's temple to see the Lord. Then go home and meet your family members." Text 40. Having received Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's permission, Ramananda Roy hastily went to the temple of Lord Jagannath, who can understand the devotional service of Roy Ramananda? Text 41. When King Prataparudra returned to Jagannath Puri, he called for Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. When the Bhattacharya went to see the king offered him respects and made the following inquiries. The king asked, "Have you submitted my petition to the Lord?" Sarvabhauma Bhatta replied, "Yes, with much endeavor. I have tried my best." Text 43. Yet despite my great endeavor, the Lord would not agree to see a king. Indeed, he said that if he were asked again, he would quit Jagannath Puri and go elsewhere. Text 44. Hearing this, the king became very unhappy and, greatly lamenting, began to speak as follows. The king said, "Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has descended just to deliver all kinds of sinful, low-born persons. Consequently, he has delivered sinners like Jagai and Madhai." Jagai and Madhai. Text 46. Alas, has Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu incarnated to deliver all kinds of sinners with the exception of a king named Maharaj Prataparudra? Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is thus described by Narottam Das Thakur. Patita pavana hetu tava avatara, mos sama patita prabhu, na poi biara. If Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended to reclaim sinners, then one who is the most sinful and low-born is the first candidate for the Lord's consideration. Maharaj Prataparudra considered himself a most fallen soul because he had to deal with material things constantly and enjoy material profits. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's business was the deliverance of the most fallen. How then could he reject the king? The more fallen a person is, the more he has the right to be delivered by the Lord, provided, of course, he surrenders unto the Lord. Maharaj Prataparudra was a fully surrendered soul. Therefore, the Lord could not refuse him on the grounds that he was a worldly pounds, shillings man. Text 47. Alas, has Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made his advent deciding that he will deliver all others with the exception of me? He bestows his merciful glance upon many lower class men who are usually not even to be seen. Purport. This verse is found in the Sri Caitanya-caritämrta Nataka 8.28. Text 48. Maharaj Prataparudra continued, "If Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is determined not to see me, then I am determined to give up my life if I do not see him." Purport. A devotee with Maharaj Prataparudra's determination will certainly be victorious in advancing in Krishna consciousness. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirms this in Bhagavad Gita 9:14. Satatang kirtiyanto mam yatantas chadrita vrataha namasyantas chabam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. These are the symptoms of a Mahatma engaged in the Lord's service in full Krishna consciousness. Thus, Maharaj Prataparudra's determination is very much exalted and is called Dridha Vrata, Because of this determination, he was finally able to receive Lord Chaitanya's direct mercy. 49. If I do not receive Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, my body and my kingdom are certainly useless. Purport. This is an excellent example of Dridha Vrata, determination. If one does not receive the Supreme Personality of Godhead's mercy, one's life is defeated. In Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.5, it is said, Para bhavastavat abodha jato yavan najigyasa atmatatvam. Para bhavastavat abodha jato yavan najigyasata atmatatvam. Unless one inquires into spiritual life, everything is useless. Without spiritual inquiry, our labor and the object of our labor are simply a waste of time. Text 50. Hearing King Prataparudra's determination, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became thoughtful. Indeed, he was very much astonished to see the king's determination. Purport. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was astonished because such determination is not possible for a worldly man attached to material enjoyment. The king certainly had ample opportunity for material enjoyment, but he was not thinking that his kingdom and everything else was useless, but he was thinking that his kingdom and everything else was useless if he could not see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is certainly sufficient cause for astonishment. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated that bhakti, devotional service, must be unconditional. No material impediments can actually check the advancement. No material impediment can actually check the advancement of devotional service, be it executed by a common man or a king. In any case, devotional service rendered to the Lord is always complete, despite the devotee's material position. Devotional service is so exalted that it can be executed by anyone in any position. One must simply be Dridha Vrata, firmly determined. Text 51. Finally, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, My dear king, do not worry. Because of your firm determination, I am sure that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy will definitely be bestowed upon you. Purport. Due to King Prataparudra's firm determination, the Bhattacharya predicted that the king would receive Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy without fail. As confirmed elsewhere in Caitanya-caritämrta, Madhya 151, Guru Krishna Prasade Poy Bhakti Lata Bij. By the mercy of the spiritual master and Krishna, one gets the seed of devotional service. The Bhattacharya was the spiritual master of King Prataparudra, and he gave his blessings to the effect that the Lord would be merciful upon the king. The mercy of the spiritual master and Krishna combine to grant success to a devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed by the Vedas. Yasya Devi Parab Bhaktir Yatha Devi Tata Garo Tasyaite Caitanya-caritämrta Prakashante Mahatmanaha. Only those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of the Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Sri Tasvatara Upanishad 623. Maharaj Prataparudra had firm faith in the Bhattacharya, who declared Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Having firm faith in the Bhattacharya as his spiritual master, King Prataparudra immediately accepted Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Lord. Thus he began worshipping Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his mind. This is the process of devotional service. According to Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 9:34, Manmana bhavamad bhakto madjaji mam namaskuru mami vaishasi sat yuktvayam atmanam mat padayanaha. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. This process is very simple. One need only be firmly convinced by the spiritual master that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one decides this, he can make further progress by thinking of Krishna, chanting of Krishna, and glorifying him. There is then no doubt that such a fully surrendered devotee will receive the blessings of Lord Krishna. Srila Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya explains this further. And we're going to stop there. We'll hear more about Bhattacharya's firm determination after seeing the king's determination tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Okay, anybody have reflections, points of interest, something that's stuck in the mind? It is said that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the most strict and also the most merciful. And only he or a person extremely advanced in his loving service and the loving service of spiritual master can actually be both extremely strict and merciful at the same time. Strict and liberal at the same time. Okay, it's your turn. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Our dear Abhaya Das Brahmachari is going to be traveling down to Zurich day after tomorrow and coming back on Thursday. That's Monday to Thursday. And we should all wish him a pleasant trip. And nowadays with this coronavirus, there are all kinds of conditions and things you have to do, and it's dangerous to travel out there in this pandemic, so we all have to grant him the mercy of all the Vaishnavas so that he may be safe and return here to his beloved service. He's very attached to this service, to my benefit, Hare Krishna, and I'm very attached to having him do this service just for that reason, because to have somebody do the kind of menial service he's doing for me is so much easier for me to accept when a person really wants to do it, and you can see that he's not doing it begrudgingly. This is his great contribution and qualification in devotional service. He's turning all kinds of colors of red and purple in embarrassment, but I felt like I should say that. And also just to connect you all with him and all of you with him. That is, if there's anyone out there, Hare Krishna. Hey Rati, I was just thinking about you.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Tonight we heard about the astonishment of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya at seeing the determination of King Prataparudra.
You really have to speak closer to the microphone, and even though everybody says they hear you, but if I can't hear you so well from over here, well, yeah. When you see a devotee who's completely devoted without anything else in his mind and heart, that is stunning, because practically everyone in the material world is attached to the material world to one degree or another. What to speak of a king who has so many personal responsibilities. It reminded me, when I was reading it, it reminded me of Gopakumar, who in his travels by the mercy of a spiritual master, even though he was young, by providence and arrangement of his Krishna, he became the king of Puri just for a short time, because the king died and the successor would refuse to take any material position. So he started doing the service, and he had actually had a desire to be, his desire was, boy, if I could be in a position similar to the king's, then I could go back into the deity room and see the Lord and be close to him whenever I wanted. So the Lord fulfilled his desire, but at the end, he became dissatisfied because he had so many material responsibilities to do, he couldn't fully absorb himself in remembrance of the Lord and the level of devotional service he was doing before. So he became discontent, and the Lord gave him permission in a dream to move on. So yes, full devotional service is very rare, and when you see it, if you're took someone qualified to see it, to be able to respond like that. So for all these reasons, we want to advance in devotional service, not for our own satisfaction or our own position, but to be able to do and see things properly and be pleasing to the Lord ourselves.
Rati has a question also.
Yeah.
She says, can we assume that the devotees of Lord Chaitanya are also under Yogamaya, and they do not know who the eternal associates of the Lord are?
Well, yeah, I mean, anyone who's close to the Lord and is in the Lord's pastimes is affected by Yogamaya, yes. But also we see wonderful exhibitions. We shouldn't think that therefore they act like ordinary people just because they can't, know that they're eternal associates of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya is a little different than Lord Krishna because, he actually talks directly to his followers in a way that lets them know that they're special to him and to Krishna. So it's a little bit different. It's Yogamaya, but Yogamaya isn't some kind of mechanical, arrangement. It's not stereotyped. It's not mechanical. It's not based on some rule and regulation or some law, of nature. The force that propels the pure devotees of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Krishna, the eternal associate, and their eternal associates, to act the way they do with one another and feel the way they do in one another, is not the same with every one of them. It's different according to their relationship. But yes, you can, in an oversense, in an overview, you can say that, that the eternal associates of Lord Chaitanya can be seen as being under the control of Yogamaya. Yeah, that's true, in a general sense. But there's a purport where Srila Prabhupada says, and I don't remember the name of the purport, unfortunately, the name of the verse. Anyway, he says that we should not think that just the eternal associates of Lord Chaitanya are Nitya Siddha. Anyone who is serving in this movement, in the proper consciousness, it should also be considered Nitya Siddha, especially those who are distributing Krishna consciousness, which is a stunning statement, but it's there. I can look it up and I'll let you know where you can find that in the purports. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Okay, I'll stop here. Thank you so much, everyone, for your untiring and wonderful taste for hearing Srila Prabhupada's books every day, or if not live, then at some time during the next day. I'm getting a look from Abai. Somebody else has something to say.
A comment from Rati Manjari.
Comment from Rati Manjari. Okay.
She says, about the influence of Yogamaya, I can imagine that it is pleasing to Lord Chaitanya to watch how one dear devotee is discovering the glories of another devotee more and becomes inspired and touched by how much that devotee loves the Lord.
Yes. Exactly. As I said, that the way that it manifests itself may be different from one devotee to another, but the general principle is absolutely correct. Okay, Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Something else is happening over here.
She wanted me to also read this. She said, we will certainly pray for the safe and joyful journey and safe return of Abai Prabhu.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj, for speaking a little about Abai's glorious service. It is a relief for us to know that you are lovingly taken care of by Abai Prabhu.
Man, he's taking such good care of me. I'm thinking about just kind of like getting into the bed, putting covers over my head and fasting until he comes back. Because his cooking has become so wonderful. Bhakta Seb, who came to help, set up is helping to set up the studio here. Maybe he'll be back on Monday and then we might be able to give it a test run, and then I can take some pictures and send it to you in my next Dear All letter, which just is about to come out. He was mentioning he had prasadam and he couldn't believe it. He went over and over. He ate a lot of cookies too, because Abai's becoming famous for his cookies. Yeah. I'm very attached and very, very pleased with the level of his service. Hare Krishna. Thank you for mentioning that, Rati. That's very personal of you. We appreciate that about you. Okay, I'm going now. Shri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same station, right here in the live studios in the Haven. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow. Hari Bol.